Okay, so I just want to welcome everybody. I just want to share that I am really both excited and impressed with all the work that Transit for All PA has been doing in the recent months and really like coming out of uh, the starting line, really moving fast, doing lots of things, mobilizing people. It's very impressive. So I want to thank you and welcome you all to this forum with Narrative Initiative. I would like to ask Connor to start and introduce Transit for All PA to us. Why did you build the organization? How old is it? You know, some of your sort of benchmarks and accomplishments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation to be here. My name is Connor Deschmaker. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the statewide campaign manager for Transit for All Pennsylvania. We are a rider and worker-led campaign for full and reliable public transportation funding in all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Though the seeds were planted in the organizing of Pittsburghers for Public Transit in the early 2010s, our group sort of coalesced under this banner in 2020 and 2021 when a group of organizations and individuals came together to formulate the Transit for All PA funding platform that dedicates us to, again, dedicated progressive funding for public transportation in rural and urban communities. Yeah, we have been hosting rallies in Harrisburg every year. We have done petitions, we've done letter writing, we've done papering of every legislator 4 or 5 times over. And we were very privileged to have our first full-time staff person hired just in January. That's me. I had previously organized just in the Philadelphia area. In the past couple of years, we organized to win the American Rescue Plan funding to preserve service
Great.
across Pennsylvania. We also last year organized for a one-time infusion of cash to our state's transit agencies to ensure, staving off collapse for a few more months. But most notably, we won federal highway flex money from Governor Shapiro by executive action. We went from zero to completion in just 10 days. We had 3,000 people take action. And we're able to do something really new and special in Pennsylvania. Right now, we are working to stave off catastrophic system cuts all across the Commonwealth, and our movement has grown to 21,000 riders and workers. Again, truly all across the Commonwealth, about 350 of which will be joining us in Harrisburg this coming Wednesday.
Thank you for that introduction. We're gonna now do a round of introductions, and if you can say your name, where you live, and just a little bit about what makes your community special. So we're gonna get into transit later. So to tell us something about your community that outside of the public transit system. So I'm gonna ask Sam to kick off and then pass it along and let's go. Sam.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Samantha Pearson. I work for the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. We're one of the partner organizations with Transit for All PA. I live myself in central Pennsylvania in rural Union County. I'm in a small town of Lewisburg, the county seat, also a college town and a river town. We have had only limited transit here for many years, and we have a pilot right now. We are working with communities all across the state all the time on economic revitalization and community development, also health and improving access to transportation and key destinations. So we're glad to be part of this initiative and interested in bringing together these constituencies all over the state.
Thank you, Alex.
Hey, my name is Alex Casper. I'm from Bradford, Pennsylvania, and my community is particularly special in that it is in the most rural district of Pennsylvania. We have the smallest population density of any district for in our state. But we also have the oldest rural public transit system. We're a college town here in Bradford. It's also the coldest part of the state, and so there's a specific need um, in our communities for ways to get around our community when people for people who would be more dangerous for driving in certain conditions. And so there's a um, we're about 100 square we're about almost 1,000 square miles in this county. It's a really big area, and um, it's I got the Allegheny National Forest. We've got a lot of tourist destinations. We once built the tallest bridge in the world here before it fell down. And so we can do cool things up here. We got a $1 billion economy, and it's very rural with only 38,000 people in the county.
Thank you. Lou?
Hi, my name is Lou Deal. I'm from Lower Paxton Township, which is about 8 or 10 miles just outside the capital of Harrisburg. I'm a person with a disability. I moved to this area about 24, 25 years ago, maybe longer, for the sole purpose of having opportunities for social events, work opportunities, and other things that advanced my career.
What makes your town special, Lou?
It's rural in nature, but it's not far from a bustling city. You know, we're between Harrisburg and Hershey, and you get a little bit of a high traffic volume on the roads, but then it's a place where you can enjoy a cool morning walk or one of those crisp autumn evenings sitting around a fire.
I think I can visualize it. Thank you. Fawn?
Yes, hello, my name is Fawn Walker Montgomery. I am with Take Action Advocacy Group. I'm the CEO there, and we are also a partner with Pittsburgh's for Public Transit PPT, which I sit on the board. I live in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, an area we affectionately call the Mon Valley because it is along the Monongahela River. My community is outside of the bigger city of Pittsburgh, so it's like suburban, rural, sometimes considered city because we are so close to Pittsburgh. What makes my community special is the people there, to be honest. We are a community with our faults. However, we are resilient, very prideful, and a very strong community-oriented community. So yeah, I would say the people is what makes my community special.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Tanner? Do you want to say something about where you live and your
Sorry,
community?
my
That's all right.
apologies. I didn't parse what you were asking me to do that time. But yeah, I live in South Philly, and I love my neighborhood because we've got a lot of porches and stoops. I love that can walk to so many things, and that my block is full of a really rich mix of people who are three generations in the same house. And to, folks like my partner and I that have been in the city for a handful of years. And we tend to know each other, and there's delis and corner stores, and even a small fresh produce market that's run by immigrants, all sort of within walking distance of my home. So I love the richness and closeness, in a big city like Philadelphia.
Thank you. Sam, I've been reading that there are a lot of proposed transit cuts across all of Pennsylvania. Can you share the big picture of the crisis that you're facing?
Sure. I'd be glad to talk about this. Basically, it's been quite a while since the state of or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has revisited this issue of transportation funding. It was dealt with over a decade ago fairly well with a couple of different legislative acts that introduced bipartisan methods of funding transportation and transit in particular. That said, those acts sunsetted and the funding has been stagnant. And we all know that costs are going up for everything, particularly transportation, actually, between fuel costs and cost for drivers and liability and things like that. So we really need to be looking at addressing that stagnation. And we also really need to understand that this is a situation that is statewide and gets dealt with on a statewide level, but all of the individual experiences feel very localized because we have many different transit providers all over the state. So you may be in a very large place like Philly or Pittsburgh, and hearing about significant cuts pending for those transit systems. But we also have, upwards of 30 additional transit providers across the state, and everyone is dealing with their own budgets and their own budget problems and crises locally. So we need to take those local issues, bind them together, and forge a statewide solution.
Thank you, Sam. So I just want to go around the circle again and ask people, how is this budget crisis impacting you and your community? And yeah, how are you experiencing it? So, Fawn, why don't you kick off this time?
Yes, so the cuts are going to affect my community. If I had described in one word, I would say intersections, because it's going to affect every walk of our life. We are cut, I would say, yearly around here with our own local transit system. So with the statewide cuts, it's going to have a bigger impact on our ability to get food access, which you already have a lot of issues with the food apartheid and food insecurity in the Mon Valley. Is going to affect our ability to get to doctor's appointments. So to be able to take care of our health issues that are further exacerbated by the fact that we are in a steel town and we have a lot of environmental justice issues with a lot of asthma, a lot of cancer, but people can't get to the doctor's appointments. It's going to affect our ability to have sustainable jobs because we won't be able to get to the jobs on time. A lot of the cuts are going to affect our seniors and our disabled people because they can't walk down to the bus stop because they're even cutting routes within neighborhoods. So it's going to affect us overall with our overall quality of life. And this is why we say transit is a human right, because it's literally connected to every walk of our lives. So we're not going to be able to get food. We're not going to be able to further our education if we want to go to college or go to school. So it just affects everything. And that's why I always say intersections, because all things are connected. And literally all these issues are connected. So literally, that's why we say transit is a human right and why it's so important that when we do frame these issues, we frame them in the intersections.
Thank you, Fawn. That was great. Lou, how is it affecting you and your community?
Well, from a disability perspective, if you are a person with a disability and you need to have a success in life, you're going to need multiple supports. It's either going to be accessible housing, access to jobs, access to education, personal assistance services, technology, and yes, even transportation. Um, one of those supports or a combination of those supports fall down, that means persons like myself or other persons with disabilities can't participate in society. If you don't have a disability yet, years ago we called that group of people temporarily able-bodied or TABs. Just wait a while. Your health and disability is around the corner waiting for you. And then you will learn then you need to adjust and adapt to the different services you need to be a success. So um, it's just so crucial. Um, as I've said many times, transportation is just one of the main underpinnings of my success in my career.
Thank you, Lou. Alex?
So my service region's the most proportionately disabled of any region in the state that covers more than one county. The ATA covers 7 counties in northern central PA, and it serves 21% of a region where 21% of people are elders, and um, a significant amount of people are people with disabilities. And so there's this large area where people who are put in positions of poverty due to their systemic barriers to accessing economic opportunities that need transportation to be able to work, to be able to get to doctor's appointments, to be able to get their groceries. We have hospitals in our region that are barely sustaining themselves that will lose 300,000 riders in those 7 counties. If I look at just the most proportionately disabled service region next door in Forest County, which is 24% disabled, 25% people who are elders. That's they get 3 times as many rides as they have the population 15,000 rides in Tiny Forest County of 6,200 people. And you just imagine like they won't have access to local health providers, they won't have access to groceries, and these are people who are spending 50 some dollars on average per ride to get to where they need to go just to get any kind of service if they don't have the person with disability subsidy. This will have huge impacts on our businesses, huge impacts on our local economy, and we might see hospitals close if we don't have access to shared ride and um, paratransit services.
Thank you, Alex. Connor, what's it like in Philly? What are the impacts that you're looking down the barrel at?
Yeah, it's looking like because southeastern Pennsylvania has, over 40% of the economic activity in Pennsylvania. It's looking like, frankly, total collapse of the Pennsylvania economy. We're talking 50 bus routes that will be erased. We're talking 5 regional rail lines that will be erased. We're talking zero train service on any service after 9 p.m. We're talking no special service for large events that happen at our sports complex, where sometimes as many as 100,000 people need to get in and out of one location at one time. And in 2026, the Philadelphia region alone is going to be playing host to the semi-quincentennial celebrations of the United States, the FIFA World Cup, the All-Star Game, the sport of which is escaping me right now, and a variety of other large events. And transit is the bedrock of all of those things. We remember when the I-95 collapsed and it was national news, and everyone said, we'll do whatever it takes to solve this problem. That serves 195,000 cars per day. Transit serves 800,000 trips per day in that same region every single day, over 4 times the impact. So we're looking at a situation where, again, we have a pre-automobile street grid in Philadelphia. So we can't physically accommodate the number of new cars and the amount of new traffic. So we're looking at thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars in lost tax revenue, gridlock everywhere, companies abandoning Philadelphia, and just a physically not functional city. So it's going to be a really, really catastrophic situation.
Thank you, Connor. Sam?
Sure. The picture here is we're just at the very beginning in Union County, a county of less than 50,000 people.
7 p.m.
We are just at the beginning of trying to put in more extensive transit, but we're facing lack of funding, right? We need this pilot that we have been doing. It's on-demand, regional, sort of localized on-demand service that is available broadly rather than $20 a ride one way. It's $2 a ride. This is actually something that enables the many people, more than 30% of the population across Pennsylvania does not drive. It enables the people who are currently just assumed to be able to ask for a ride, live with someone who can give them a ride, manage some other way, depend on their church, depend on their community. We're trying to make sure that there are options for people, and we're coming into this at a time of decreasing opportunities. So we're really looking to make sure that our area also has the potential for economic growth and quality of life and livable options that people all over the state need. This has hobbled us for many years, and we want it not to hobble us going forward. We need to see this funding come through.
Thank you, Sam. Hunter, I wanted to go back to you, and I know uh, that people were lightly coordinated before, but really made a decision a couple of years ago to come together and build a new statewide effort. And I'm wondering what went into making that decision and how it's impacted your strategy, the outreach you do, the tactics that you take on in your organizing.
Yes, absolutely. So it became very apparent during, the COVID pandemic that we needed to think strategically differently and join together because our causes are the together. And with transit specifically for operations funding, with the exception of very rural communities, you cannot receive operating support from the federal government except in those emergency cases like in COVID. So we're in a unique position to where we can solve this problem just by acting together at the state level. Though we had sort of been organizing in this statewide way on donated time from various organizations starting in 2020 and 2021, since I joined as the first sort of dedicated statewide staffer in January, it's meant that we can have someone who is specifically and explicitly focused on organizing places outside of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Because even though that provides, the large majority of transit trips, and that is exactly the kind of fissure that people are trying to drive between our rural and urban communities, despite transit being a bedrock of even our most rural communities, maintaining a lifeline for people's access to community and care. So, in terms of tactics, it means that I'm now hosting monthly small systems working group calls where we're working with people explicitly from outside of those two major metro areas. It means that for our rally, where of those 300 plus people that we're bringing from all over, we're going to have something on the order of 50 to 75 riders and workers from places outside of those major metros coming to speak. And it means that we can broadcast front and center the crisis facing our shared ride and paratransit services. That's something that, again, affects even the most remote and rural counties in Pennsylvania, while also painting a portrait for a statewide solution that is focused on restoration and expansion of service rather than preservation of the status quo, which over the last decades, but especially 5 years, has meant that everyone has lost service, regardless of their system size.
So I have a follow-up question. So when you think about the power equation to win, how has knitting together a more statewide, urban, rural, unified effort, work to, advance your vision in the state legislature?
Well, it means that we have specific examples every time that a legislator says this is a bailout for SEPTA or says, I don't get that in my community. Well, I can show them the face and have that person tell their story of how this is going to affect them personally, bodily, spiritually. Like this is something that, really makes explicit why we are in solidarity with one another. And I think it means that I'm, trying to plant the seeds for things like press conferences and rallies in Center County, press conferences and rallies in the Lehigh Valley. We've got bases of riders in Erie, and it means also that we're able to more effectively organize with multi-issue organizations in these communities and plug into what is existing. One group that we've started to work with quite a bit is called PA Stands Up, and they've got chapters all over Pennsylvania. And that has meant that we're able to, use our existing trusted messengers and trusted networks And that has also worked on the union side, where with the ATU chapters all over Pennsylvania, we've been able to use them as conduits to say, who are the trusted messengers? How can we work together to understand your specific needs and how that fits into a larger framework?
Thank you. So I'm curious about uh, why each of you decided to commit yourself to this organizing campaign. Fawn, what motivated you to get involved and stay involved? Um,
Yes. So I was motivated. Well, first, I'm a Black woman. Everyone can see that. So I'm a Black woman, and my community is filled with those who are most impacted. Black people, brown people, disabled people, elderly people, people below socioeconomic status. So that actually prompted me to run for office. So I'm a former elected official, and when I was on Council McKeesport, Pittsburgh's Republic Transit actually approached me about getting involved in a campaign they were working on because they were once again proposing cuts in our community. So that's where I got involved specifically with the issue of transit on a real detailed organizing level. So for that campaign, it was various communities because the Mon Valley is made up of several communities. So it wasn't just McKees, but it was all of us, which kind of goes back to something I feel like Connor just said, because we all had similar interests or things we were going through. So PPT worked with all elected officials in all those communities, and we were actually able to win that campaign and stop the cuts, which was really beneficial, and making sure that people were able to get food and get back and forth to work at that time. So that's what really kind of got me involved with transit. But it wasn't just that, it was really the community, it was really the people, and it was people power because I was really able to see, oh, wow, this is what happens when people, actually organize and come together across communities.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Alex, do you want to share what inspired you to get involved and why you stay involved?
Absolutely. So I am a person with many disabilities. I can't see very well. I got hit by a car and I cannot walk very well. I'm partially paralyzed. I get seizures frequently. I fall asleep all the time because I'm suspected of being narcoleptic. And so this is a lifeline issue for me. And on top of that, I'm a Catholic and I believe in serving people with a preferential option for the poor. It's in our social teaching. Um, and that also means serving where I'm needed most. I'm secretary for a political party, and we've been a member of uh, the Transit for All Pennsylvania Coalition for several years. And with these attacks on public transit and us being on defense right now and having an opportunity to get on offense with this new funding package we're trying to pass, I believe this is where I'm needed most right now, both in my own needs to be able to get health care and heal and get myself back into a position where I can participate in the economy. Our economy basically means our participation in economics is relies on these services, and if we don't have certain services, um, we institutionally are considered dead in our economic system. If we view things in the same lens of Gustavo Gutierrez, who is the father of liberation theology in our social teaching. And so if we want people to go to church, we need to make sure that there's a bus that takes them to church. If we want people to go to work, we need there to be a bus that takes people to go to work. If we want people to get health care and heal, we need to make sure that service is available. We need to make sure that service is there with that preferential option for the people who need that service the most. In my regions, we are one of the most proportionally elderly and disabled regions. And so there's this big need in my area. We're also not organized. And so I need to make sure that my region, being so rural, being a blank canvas for organizing, has somebody dedicating themselves to these basic services.
Thank you, Alex. Lou, what brought you to the table and what keeps you at the table?
I'm a strong believer in investment in people. For people like here in the Commonwealth, each day tax revenue is sent into the capital for various purposes and programs. And for me, I received services from the Commonwealth to help me get the training I needed as a blind person to read technology or use technology, read Braille, use a white cane, and mass transit. The government invested in me in services years ago when I was in grad school. The research said for every $1 of vocational rehabilitation services spent on a person with a disability, that person creates $10 of tax revenue. I don't know what that figure is now, but because people have invested in me, I've been able to work, go to school, be married, own a home, participate in the community. So for me, it's a return on investment. Um, I think transportation is, um, like I said earlier, just absolutely vital. It's so vital in many ways. It's a way to get to the doctor's office, a way to get to church, a way to visit your family, participate in work, vocational training, or any other kind uh, of thing you might need to do, grocery shopping or whatever.
Thank you, Lou. Sam, what grabbed you about this issue and what keeps you connected and picking?
So I mentioned earlier that our organization, the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, works statewide. And when I'm talking to people in different places, in until recently, I haven't had something to offer them in this area. So I heard from people in State College or just outside of State College in Bellefonte that they were losing their transit service. This was an imminent thing that was happening. They brought this to me a while ago. And while I gave them some resources, we talked a bit, we we were talking very much at that local level. Like, what can we do with the local officials? What can we do talking to state legislators? But are there local solutions we can come up with? It is fantastic to be able to put them in connection, in touch with, and connected to this broader network, resources that can be focused on what are sustainable potential funding solutions, and really building both consensus, power, and excitement, enthusiasm for solutions that can work for all of us. That can't really be done, just by a small group of people in a borough of 6,000 people, right? We need that power of the statewide coalition. We need all of the people engaged. We need all the experiences that they have, and all the enthusiasm. I think that it builds on itself. It's also just great to see that people are excited about transit and the ability to get around in a way that people who do not ride transit or think about transit, they have no access to. And so we want to make sure, normalize that, make sure that's sort of visible, that this is not an exception. Your community is not an exception in needing transit. We all need transit, no exceptions.
Thank you. Connor?
And to make sure I've got the question, can you restate it one more time? I apologize.
Yeah, so what connects you to this issue and what
Yeah.
what keeps you going?
Yeah.
What about the work that you're doing keeps you motivated and investing in the issue?
Uh, First, from the personal level, I have been without a car for 8 years now. And that has been across 3 states, in Arizona, in Washington, and now in Pennsylvania. It is now a choice, but when it started, I had a car that I was given by a relative who passed away. I was rear-ended, the car was totaled, and I could either, get a beater car that would just be a cash suck, or I would have a savings account and be able to like potentially move one day. So I did that. And that is what allowed me to, move to the next stage of my life. So transit is something that is at the center of my mobility and the way I orient myself. Politically speaking, in this particular moment, um, I cannot tell you how enriching and what a privilege it is to every day wake up and be fighting for a public good at a time when our public goods are being directly targeted by forces at all levels of government. And because transit touches healthcare access, economic opportunity, disability justice, racial justice, environmental justice, and so much more, um, it feels like a really purposeful lane to be in that is really part of our fight. And like I said earlier, bridging that rural urban divide.
Great, thank you. Sam, I know that you have been as started this new rural sort of working group, and I'd like to hear more about how that fits into your model of organizing and how that's working out.
The biggest thing is that people tend to default to transit is just a big city issue. It's just for those people somewhere else. And the vast majority do not recognize that we already do have transit, not adequate, but we have transit because it's desperately needed everywhere. And that's what's so confusing to people. They're like, what do you mean there's more than 30 transit systems in Pennsylvania, right? We thought there was just SEPTA, the monster system in Southeast PA around Philadelphia, or PRT, the Pittsburgh Regional Transit, like they think those are it. But you start looking down the list. Yes, it's bigger places like Allentown or Erie or Reading, but it's also Bradford. Like we have CATA, we have a couple CATAs in Center County, Crawford County, North Central. So we have services and needs everywhere. We have people who are starting to be more aware that not everyone, as Lou said, or we're all tabs, right? We're temporarily able-bodied people. We're all one just sort of life experience or incident away from either ourselves or just we hope we live long enough to be able to take advantage of different ways of getting around, of needing to use those different ways of getting around. We know that the average American outlives their ability to drive by 7 to 10 years, and that's the average. Some people drive to the end, other people have 20 years with no ability to drive. So what's our plan for ourselves, for our parents, for our kids? How are we, thinking about that even in rural areas? How are we understanding that our small towns, our small cities, our rural areas also have these same proportions of people who are too young to drive, too old to drive, have disabilities that preclude driving, have no desire to drive, can't afford a car, that is a universal sort of status quo, and that the imagination that everyone drives is just that it's an exaggeration and it's imaginary.
So I just want to have one last round, and Connor, I'm going to have you kick it off here. What does your organizing mean for our democracy in this moment? Many people think that the democracy is at stake, and how is your organizing impacting our democracy?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, transit is a public good. And I think the thing that is unique here is that as we face concerns in a lot of our urban areas around safety and cleanliness on our public transportation, we recognize that, well, it's because all of our other public places are closed or privatized. And so, maintaining this kind of, institution, this infrastructure, is something that feels central to our fight for democracy. And again, like because transit touches all of these other issues, and also because our information is so siloed right now, this is a connection that people are able to identify, right? People can understand like, oh my God, like my grandma can't get to the doctor. My neighbor can't get to the community center. My cousin can't get to the grocery store. These are things that are all very tangible to us, and are part of what keeps us, connected to our world at large and, out of isolation. And that is a, foundational pillar of a preserved democracy.
Thank you. Lou, democracy in 30 seconds, what does your organizing on transit, how does it contribute to our democracy?
It empowers people to the better good. We all need help with something, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, Remember on the bus, we always talked about different things, and you learn different viewpoints. And then at the end of the day, it just comes down to on whatever the issue, um, you all pull the rope the same way.
Thank you. Fawn, what does it mean to you?
Mm. Democracy, that's an interesting concept. As a Black woman, I don't feel like I've probably ever really seen that without people power. So that's what the organizing means to me, people power. Um, I know that it's more heightened for some folks now, but it's always heightened for us. This is nothing new under the sun. I always tell people like they can't cut your pride, they can't cut your compassion, they can't cut your empathy, they can't cut your drive. So us organizing together and us showing people power is democracy, literally living that out. So I feel like my organizing is core to that belief of people power, not belief of democracy. And every time I'm asked this question, I'm always going to say that we can't be doom and gloom about where we are at now because we've been here before. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter what they cut. You can't cut somebody's spirit. So I would say the organizing is central to democracy and people power.
Thank you. Alex?
Soon as I walk outside of my city's borders and I enter another township, I become I become a resident in one of those townships. I now live too far away to walk to my voting place to be able to vote in most cases. Most rural voters in townships need some form of transportation just to be able to vote. And in our rural counties, we have county-wide shared ride services that can take you to your voting place on voting day. And it's unfortunately it's very expensive right now if you are not receiving the person with disability subsidy. We have a lot of work to do to improve that. But the more work that we do to engage in public transit, the easier it is for people to go out and vote, the easier it is for people to go out and canvass, the easier it is for people to go out and petition and do direct outreach. And more of those conversations happen, the more socializations that happen. And we know that we're going to find ways to agree more and vote and be able to decide on things better because more people are able to participate. There is more people riding public transit.
Thank you. Sam, I'm giving you last licks here.
Okay. Uh, I think Alex, hit very strongly on the literal connection to democracy, but I think there's also the organizational connection to democracy. We have set up a system that requires us to act at a statewide level. We all need to be engaged. We all need to connect to each other. We need to understand more about what each other's needs are, what our realities are. The act of organizing, the act of coordinating, getting together, uh, going to rallies, contacting our fellow advocates. Those are all ways of connecting us across difference, whether the difference is where we live, it's our backgrounds, our racial makeup, it is our economic status, it's our ability status. All of these differences are things that a democracy ideally can weave together, but doesn't when we remain atomized, when we're sort of all isolated and thinking about our own things. So transit, as Connor said, is a public good. It brings us all together, and advocating for transit truly helps us realize that potential for democracy. Now we just have to bring it home and actually win the funding.
And I
Thank
want
you,
to
guys. Oh yeah, go for it, Connor. You got to
I just
add
want
one
to,
thing?
yeah, I
Yep.
just was going to really shout out also what Lou said about just like the connection that comes from using shared transportation. And I think about how much more we are likely to just treat people as humans the more we share space with one another. And I think that's something that Lou really highlighted in his comments.
Yeah, you meet lots of different kinds of people on the bus that are similar and different and hear their opinions and build relationships. So I want to thank everybody. It was a great presentation you guys just did, and I'm going to open it up and see if anyone else would like to ask a question before we move on. Anyone? I think you sewed it up. You hit it out of the park. So thank you so much. Um, so the next steps are we'll have a recording. I'm gonna draft up a rough draft of a case study and be working with the narrative initiative team to polish that and feed it back to you guys for your feedback and approval and then push it out. Sam?
I was thinking we were waiting for questions from the other people who had joined, but are we allowed to ask questions?
You're allowed to ask questions, yes?
I'm just curious about people's level of interest in being part of Week Without Driving, where we work to actually get all the legislators and other levels of elected officials we're working with to try it out, experience what it's like, ideally for a week, but even for a day or even for a ride. That first week of October started, the one that starts still at the end of September, but goes into October. We're going to be doing Week Without Driving across the country. And we really want to get people aware of it and inviting their elected officials to take part. Maybe we'll be able to celebrate some funding, but maybe we'll continue to be able to make the case for how this is relevant in all of their districts, in all of their jurisdictions, all over the state.
So am I understanding, Sam, that you're looking for people everywhere, anywhere to participate in a week without driving?
Yes.
And Brian and Bree are on the line from Virginia, and Bree from a national project that's rooted in Idaho. Maybe the two of you want to weigh in. Um, I live in Texas, where a week without driving means you don't go anywhere, pretty much. Um, but I'd be happy to test it though with like people in Texas. I live near Austin. My sister's in Houston. So yeah, I mean, it's a really creative idea, and um, I can think about how.
Maybe some people have been doing a little diary, like check to see if I could ride the bus to go to this appointment and I can, like tweeting it out, like, there is no about why you're unable to do the week without driving could be about talking about why there isn't access as well.
Exactly, just highlighting those needs. It is a national campaign coordinated by America Walks and came out of Washington State, but there are people involved, I think, if not in all 50 states, it's very close. I'm very sure there are people in Texas, probably also in Idaho doing it. Maybe not absolutely everywhere, but within those states, but there are definitely initiatives and there are probably coordinating groups as well. There are webinars and preparatory and lots of sort of advertising materials available at weekwithoutdriving.org.
I have a follow-up comment as well.
Go for it, Lou.
Um, as often has been stated today, many people believe that mass transit and other transit services are for people that need them. But what's not understood is if you don't need transportation, you may live near a park and ride, which allows you to go there, park your car, ride into town, or do whatever you need to do. And in return, it's safer. That person's saving money various ways, parking, gas. And in today's society, it's probably a lot safer with distracted driving all over the place. don't necessarily have to worry about weather all the time. So even though um, you may not need it, it benefits you a lot in many ways.
Any other thoughts that people want to share? I think we can wrap up the presentation.
I
Bree, I
was
personally live in Los Angeles. We're in a huge transit fight. Yeah, you are in a huge transit fight.
I was
Um,
just gonna add that we do participate in the Day Without Driving. Pittsburghers for Public Transit. We did it with Bike Pittsburgh last year, so we'll definitely will be open to that.
and the national campaign is all in on Week Without Driving too, encouraging everybody to do the Week Without Driving. Uh, uh, so good work. And it drives
I
a
think
narrative. Speaking about narrative shift, the Week Without Driving is one way that we drive our narrative around the need for public transit at every level of government and in every community. So thank you so much. I think you're uh, free to leave. Rinku, are you gonna lead a discussion? What
Yeah,
do you think
we'll
about the next step?
you're free to leave, Pennsylvania Transit folks, but you're also welcome to stay. Um, what I wanted to do, it probably won't go for 30 minutes, and we're a small group today, but I wanted to just give you some updates and share the social media toolkit for our first case study coming out. So, just a little bit of background for our new joiners. This working group of organizers and creators about a year ago decided that we would produce a set of case studies based on people's campaigns and lessons and innovations that showed how rural and urban people have shared interests and shared struggles and shared benefits from the solutions that they come up with. So you are our latest case study interview, but the first of these is about to come out next week, and that was the story of communities for our colleges in Washington State. So uh, so I want to do a quick update on that and setting up for that, and then have a little bit of discussion about future opportunities, which we worked on identifying future opportunities to insert rural urban unity um, uh, into um, the discourse, the public discourse, the culture, election cycles, wherever we think we might find an opening. So I want to just reflect a little bit on what we did last month and ask even this small group of people some questions about the 250th anniversary in particular. We identified that as an opportunity, and I would like us to talk about it a little bit more before we're getting together in person in Atlanta near the end of June. So those are the two things we're gonna do next. Um, Leanne, would you mind putting into the chat the link to the Communities for Our Colleges social media toolkit? Are you able to do that? Or Nadia, can you do that right quick?
Um,
Thank you, Connor.
I'm so sorry to be impolite. Thank you so much
That's
for the invitation to
okay.
this space. And this is just truly the day that I can't. I'm so sorry. But I
We're
look
so
forward to
happy
continuing
that
to
you were with
participate.
us.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yep. So what you can see in this link is a social media toolkit for the first case study. We're going to publish it next month on the Narrative Initiative. Not next month, next week on the Narrative Initiative website. From the interviews that the from the Communities for Our Colleges interview that they did, which is like the interview you all just did, that Pennsylvania just did. We pulled out 3 clips, and we intend to use those clips to gin up interest via social media in getting people to go and read their case study. So the toolkit has, thank you, Nadia. Will you give out permissions? I didn't reset it myself. So thank you. The toolkit has links to the videos for this particular case study, and it has suggested language for Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we'd really appreciate everybody sharing. Communities for Our Colleges will obviously share it on their website and in their socials. But if you all take your personal socials or your organizational socials and add narrative initiative, then it would be easy for you just to repost and amplify our posts. Thank you, Nick. So Nick is updating permissions, and if you haven't been able to get in yet, maybe try again shortly. Try refreshing. We're gonna be doing so Communities for Our Colleges goes up next week. The second case study to go up will be on the Arkansas Public Policy panel. Arkansas, as folks know, is a largely rural state, so most of the people live in rural communities there, and that case study is about their efforts to organize around education, and education fairness, education financing, all of those kinds of questions. So we're intending to just keep pushing these out between now and the end of June. And we will probably on a weekly basis ask all of you to help us get eyeballs on these case studies. And then Pennsylvania's will become one of them. So we'll be starting to run a draft by you, not super soon, like not for at least a month, but as part of the next push, the next set of case studies after the first 3 come out. Do you have questions, anyone, on case studies or the social media toolkit? Okay, looks like access is rolling. So then let's go to talking about opportunities. In our last meeting last month, we made a list of everything we could think of in various categories, in politics, in entertainment, in I don't know, history and culture, everything we could think of where there might be an opening for us to push the notion that rural people and urban people have lots in common and can make common cause on important things. So I'm going to repost Leanne. In her reminder about this meeting yesterday, sent out a summary. And I'm just going to repost the original document as well. But I want to focus this discussion for, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes just to get your gut reads on the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I think Connor or Sam, one of you called it something. There's a name for the 250th. What is it?
Sesquiquincentennial.
Thank you. So for that, which will I mean, presumably sort of peak around the 4th of July, but there'll be content. Oh, yes, Sam has information. No, okay. I thought you were wanting to say something, Sam. I was
I
gonna.
think I said it wrong. I think it's
Oh,
semi-quincentennial. Sorry.
semi-quincentennial. Great.
Yes.
That makes sense. Right, because
Half of
quincentennial would
500.
be 500, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now we have a word for it, which I really appreciate. I've been talking about this thing for a year without having one word. So, so this is what we're looking for. Sport, yes, Philly will be having a lot, and I think Pennsylvania, the state, might be having a lot, right? I'm curious about Virginia, Brian, and if it's coming up for you. I guess the question I want to put in front of us is it's going to be pretty crowded cultural and discourse space. Like a lot of people are going to be seeing it as an opportunity to comment on the state of our country and communities, our movements. And I think if we want to use it as a group, we need to think about what our niche might be. Is it like in shifting local discussion around it or um, something else? The national space is going to be really crowded. And I think to break into it would require money that we currently do not plan to spend out of most of our organizations. So I just want to get a read of whether and how it might be worth pursuing, starting with are you already pursuing it or anticipating that you'll be doing something in your organizations regardless. So opening the floor.
I will say that in Pennsylvania, they recruited committees for every county. So that's 67 counties. Back when they were initially requesting this, it was about a little over a year ago. I was trying to get like some people from NAACP in our area to participate, just because, to be honest, the Pennsylvania program is they're trying to be diverse and focusing on lots of angles of our history, but it is being put together by people who don't really understand that concept. So, I don't think very many. I think it's sort of the usual suspects are doing it currently. So I'm interested in the idea if there is some other initiative that we could help to broaden the scope. Both my organization and other groups that I work with, would be interested in that.
Can I ask you, when you say the usual suspects, who you mean? Like, are you talking about parties and politicians or?
It's sort of like the people who love the history, like um and love the history they learned when they were in third grade, right? Um, so it's a little bit of a limited scope. It's a lot of rah-rah. It's a lot of, you know, all of our ancestors were perfect. It's not the case for me.
A
So
very nostalgic set
yes,
of
yeah,
usual suspects. Got
right.
it.
So
Thank you.
I
That's
would love to
helpful.
be part of something that's about a more perfect union and sort of the effort to improve and uh try to live up to our aspirations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Um, I'm reading your text, your chat, Alex. Or do you want to just say this? Go for it.
Yeah, I can say it. Yeah, I mean, I don't like being pessimistic about my political party. I'm the secretary of the Green Party of Pennsylvania. I don't like being pessimistic about my party, but we kind of have this anti-party culture going on where we like don't like the establishment. And so I can't guarantee my party members will participate in very many bicentennial events besides the petition to get on the ballot for public office, but it will be our state party's 25th birthday. And so we will probably be doing some different things to organize and celebrate that. And we'll certainly be happy to organize for pro-democracy efforts, any pro-democracy reforms, things like that to help celebrate and build a stronger democracy.
Thank you. Um, are Brian and Bree still on the line? And do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just looking at ours too, and it's kind of, as I suspected, it's like the chambers of commerce and the tourism boards for Virginia. And there's a nice fancy website that I'm sure like Dominion Resources funded. Um, but no, I think there's definitely some organizing angles around democracy, especially here where like Pennsylvania, there is a nice they're not even nice, but like this myth of the founding, and we talk a lot about our oldest elected body without talking about who's been excluded. So I see a lot of angles. I do know a lot of our partners, including us, we've got a governor's race this fall. So I'm not sure there will be much air in the organizing space to start planning, not to be an excuse, but just realistically thinking. Um, but yeah, I am excited about the notion of tying it to some of the, having some opportunities to organize and do a lot of pro-democracy work, hopefully after some really successful elections.
Yeah, and you mean your governor's election is in 26, but
No,
campaigning starts this year?
no, it's in
No, it's
25.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
And all 100 of our delegates too. So
Oh, got it. Wow. Okay. Yes. You're gonna have a busy fall. Awesome. Bree, do you have any notes here?
Not a ton. Sorry, I'm a little sick today. I know Idaho is doing a lot for America 250. Um, I think it's going to be, I mean, I think it's going to be skewed in a very specific direction in Idaho. I think that's fairly self-evident on how I think those celebrations are going to go. Los Angeles has a couple communities doing stuff. I know like Simi Valley is doing things at the Reagan Library. Um, but it is really interesting to see, LA is not definitely not getting into it like Idaho is. Idaho even has like their own, like in the America 250, they have their own page and section, and they're just it is interesting to see that difference. 'Cause I think there is, like it was hinted at, people that are very big on taking the Declaration of Independence in a very specific way and on looking at different. I think the word freedom will come into question a lot, and I think depending on how we want to frame that, because I think when people in Los Angeles say freedom, they mean a very different thing than people in Idaho tend to mean, not to generalize, but just from what I've heard talking to a lot of people. And I think that'll come into question a lot. But yeah, so not a ton of comments, but those are kind of the two observations from, my two little parts of the world.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Um, I think, and it gives us enough to work with to think about this further and um, bring some ideas to our in-person gathering at the 22nd Century Initiative conference, um, which representatives from all of our organizations will be at. And I guess to me, it sounds like um, there's a patriotic, like an unquestioning patriotic bent to most of what we know about that's happening in the mainstream in our states. And then you all do have an interest in inserting um, inserting yourselves and your approaches to democracy if we can figure out a way to do that that isn't like um, that is actually doable, and to patriotism. Yes, thank you. You're saying to democracy and to patriotism, right? Yeah. Um, uh, we have colleagues who have been building out um, kind of freedom, different ways of narrating freedom that we might want to bring into our discussions at some point. And yeah, I mean, we don't have like forever, you know, endless time because next year's going to be here like tomorrow. Um, I'm looking at your note, Alex. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to get rid of the Electoral College. Could we do that as a marker of our semi-quincentennial? Um, okay,
That's
so
a little
we'll
bit tough because of Hunter v. Pittsburgh. I think home rule county to do STV because STV is proportional ranked choice voting, which is better than just regular ranked choice voting. I see Sam's comment. STV is called single transferable vote. Its other name is proportional ranked choice voting. It's
Mhm.
the better system because it guarantees you have a multi-party democracy.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's definitely a like democracy expanding policies angle to this moment that's coming up. Um, and there's also a what's the story we tell ourselves about our country angle. Um, so there are at least two angles that we could look for openings through. Um, so it sounds like it's worth keeping on the table. I think we were looking for a direction around keeping it as a like among the top three opportunities we might pursue versus not. And it feels to me like there's enough interest to warrant um, seeing if we can land on a plan that feels promising and doable. Um, so we'll do some thinking about that, and then as staffs, and then we'll think about it together when we're in Atlanta. Those were my two items. Leanne, is there anything else that we talked about doing that I've not done?
No, I think we've covered it for today. I just
Okay.
really want to appreciate our guests from Pennsylvania, and FYI, Dan and two people are coming from Pennsylvania to the gathering. So you can share your perspectives with them so they can chime in at the table. So
Mhm.
really great job. Thank you for all your time and most importantly, all your work. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadia, are you good?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm all set.
All right,
Thank you so
great.
much.
Thanks
I'll
so
stop the
much.
recording.